Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and then inspire the community to be healthier and balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is health coach Denise Mokadsi. Will be discussing what the best diet is for you. Do your genetics hold the answers? Welcome, Denise.
Hi, how are you going?
With so many diets out there, it can feel overwhelming. Why doesn't one diet fit all of us?
It's so frustrating, isn't it, for people to find what's the right diet or best nutrition advice for them. Because we are all so different, it's hard to have a one diet fits all. It just won't work. And so the genes, our genes, really do hold the answer to what is going to be the best diet for us. And the way that we look at that, because it's food and our genes, it's lifestyle and our biology together, that's epigenetics basically. So it's how do we make our lifestyle work for us given the biology we've got. So maybe some people have heard of epigenetics, but just to help people understand what it actually is, it is basically the influence of our lifestyle on our genes. So epi refers to above or beyond the genes, and the genetics part is talking about our DNA. So what changes does our lifestyle bring to our genetics? How does it change the expression of our genes? And when we know that, we can work out maybe what diet is going to be best for us. That's kind of really why one diet doesn't fit everybody, because we're all just so different.
Denise, how can knowing our own genetic makeup help us choose the best diet for our own individual bodies?
This is quite an important one, because if we're eating foods that don't suit our genetics, then it's adding more stress into the body or causing more disease or illness down the track if we continue to do it. So understanding our genes can be very beneficial for that reason. For example, if you've got an allergy to gluten, for example, or your body doesn't process gluten properly, then that's going to be a big stress into your body. So it's helpful to know that you've got a gene or some gene variation that means that you're not going to process gluten properly. We can test for multiple types of foods with gene testing, but also from an epigenetic point of view, we can see how someone is metabolizing carbohydrates or caffeine or fats. And when we know that we've got better predisposition to certain foods, then it just means that we're eating foods that are, like I said, not going to harm us. So, for example, some people you might know have coffee straight after dinner, like an espresso after dinner, and they're fine. It doesn't affect their sleep. But someone else who is a slow caffeine metabolizer, for example, would struggle doing that. They would stay awake all night, or they might even have a coffee earlier in the day after lunch, and it still affects their sleep because they're taking quite a long time to metabolize the caffeine. So that's another way that we could be really helpful for what we're choosing, what foods we're choosing to eat. The other thing that is often missed for a lot of people is the timings of food, and we can work out epigenetically when is going to be best for someone to eat. So for example, someone might be better to just eat one bigger meal during the day and have more that intermittent fasting or fast for long hours throughout the day, whereas someone else, it's much better for their body to eat smaller, more frequent meals. So they might be someone that has 5 or 6 small meals consistently throughout the day compared to someone else that has just one. Or someone will be better to metabolize carbohydrates, so they would be better on a vegetarian kind of diet. Someone can be better metabolizing protein, so they might do well having meat and fish and things like that. So understanding all of that is very helpful. It just takes the guesswork out. You can try to eat all sorts of different foods, but you might notice that you don't feel particularly well after eating a particular food or eating in a certain way. Like if you do eat frequent small meals, like maybe you just don't feel good doing that. So at least the genetic testing takes out the guesswork. You don't have to go through the struggle of not feeling well because you're eating a certain way or certain foods. And so there's lots of ways that we can actually test for that. We can do genetic testing on sequences of DNA, of the codes. And that might be a blood test or a cheek swab or saliva or urine or stool if we're looking for gut issues. Or we can do epigenetic testing from phenotypical measurements. So basically that's what someone looks like, someone's appearance. So we can just do lots of different measures, and the relationship of all of those measures gives us very powerful information. It's super interesting. Like the relationship of your wrist size to your arm length, to your finger length, and to your neck size and your thigh. Like all of those measurements give us information how they relate to each other, which gives us clues about the genetics that we've got and how we're interacting with our lifestyle, because how we are doing that is influencing our outcomes, like how we're showing up because of the result of our genes and what we're doing with our lifestyle.
Thanks for such valuable information, Denise.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about how genes affects our success in dieting and Denise, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, holistic grief counsellor Gemma Kyriakou will be talking about managing the grief and loss of a pet. Welcome back. Our second guest is holistic grief counsellor Gemma Kyriakou, and we'll be discussing how to manage the grief and loss of a pet. Welcome, Gemma. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Melissa.
Losing a pet, is that like losing a member of the family?
Yes, absolutely. Losing a pet is like losing a member of the family. They're treated like a member of the family and are held in high regard like a member of the family. You have a deep emotional bond with your pet, with your animal, whether that be a dog, a cat, or a bird, for example. Your pet has been with you. It could be with you for a short time or a long time. A lot of the time, your pet has been with you through some very dark times and some very high times, some very exciting times. But they've been through all these life events with you, and with unconditional love and non-judgmental, of course. They've been a big support to you as well. So losing a pet can be equally as painful as losing a member of the family that is human, for example. People have pets for many different reasons. For example, it may be a guide dog. It may be a support animal. It could be the family cat or dog that you bought for your children. So there has to be so much consideration that goes into that choice for your children to grow up with, and it will often be their first experience of the life and death cycle. Also, people that are on their own and they have an animal as a companion that has been their companion for maybe 20 years, and all of a sudden they are gone. They're left with an intense loneliness. There's a huge void for them now, which has multiple consequences.
Everyone approaches grief of a pet differently. Within a family, are there consequences after the death of a pet?
Quite often you'll find the consequences of the death of a pet. For example, someone that lives on their own and they've lost their dog that's been with them for 20 years. It's been with them through thick and thin, highs, lows, and loved them unconditionally and being such a support to them. And now not having them there can create such a loneliness and a big void in that person's life. And it will affect their life, for example, in many cases where you lose your social interaction of the day, where you'll be taking your dog for a walk. And also explaining, if you're in a family setting, explaining to your children, having that hard conversation of the life and death cycle, and choosing, the next pet, for example, very carefully due to the lifespan of different. Also, the consequences of losing your pet is for the physical and emotional well-being. So not only do you not get your daily exercise and your social interaction at, say, the dog park, you're losing that physical well-being that is, say you have a cat and your cat is on your lap and it purrs. That purr has a frequency, it has a vibration, which is scientifically fact it lowers blood pressure, lowers the stress hormone, and it promotes relaxation. So now when that animal is not there, your physical and emotional well-being is, slightly compromised along with your grieving. It's important also to take into consideration when the death of an animal to just maybe take a little breather. Maybe don't rush into getting another pet. Quite often than not, the immediate response from people will be, just get another dog, just get another cat. And it's not always that easy. Yeah, so replacing an animal, take a little breather. For example, a friend of mine back in our childhood, she had a cockatoo. It was the family cockatoo. And the cockatoo was called Candy, loved it. It was so funny, had great personality. Now the cockatoo died, unfortunately, and they replaced the cockatoo, I think within like a couple of weeks. And unfortunately, the cockatoo was actually quite vicious, and it was nothing like the original cockatoo. So I think they felt like they should have just waited a little bit longer rather than trying to replace, the personality of the previous animal. Because all animals have such unique personalities, they're all souls, they all have their own personalities. It's important to validate people's grief when it comes to losing an animal. It can be an extremely traumatic experience. Just because the animal is not human, we can still respond in exactly the same way as if it was a significant loved one. For example, when I had two cats. One was accidentally knocked over by a car. It had some kittens, so I kept a kitten. And I loved that kitten. Now this just totally rocked my world. I took extreme measures, I made big life changes after that. I was absolutely traumatized by the passing of my cat. But what actually was coming up was former trauma. After my mother had passed away, I hadn't processed what had happened. So losing two cats in such a short space of time, 3 years later, was a delayed grief reaction for me. And from what happened there, I made a lot of different choices, self-sabotage, cut relationships, big changes in someone's life that can occur from losing an animal, which is actually a result of a past trauma. It's also really important to validate people's feelings and reactions when it comes to losing an animal. In my case, when I lost both my cats, so I was extremely distressed by this, and I made a lot of life decisions after that. But what it actually brought up for me was, and my reaction, it was quite extreme, and I made lots of different choices at that time, was I had not processed the death of my mother that had happened 3 years previous. So this was bringing up previous trauma for me that I hadn't processed. Also, we can have anticipated grief, especially when we know we have to euthanize our pets. We know the time is coming, we know we have to put them to sleep, and this can bring a lot of anxiety, and again some previous traumas to the forefront for us. But also losing a pet very suddenly, the trauma of it being there 1 minute and not the next, again, is equally as traumatic, and they both have to be validated.
What advice would you have for people dealing with the grief and loss of a pet?
My advice would always be to reach out to a trusted friend, keep those lines of communication open. It really is about trying not to self-isolate and hide away. Keep your lines of communication open. There are support groups out there. You can search them. They're for people that have lost their animals. Sometimes listening to stories that are similar to yours can bring comfort. But if you do feel like those feelings of grief are becoming overwhelming, because it's very normal for that to happen, then please seek a professional counsellor that can help you navigate your emotions and your feelings.
Thank you, Gemma. That's been really insightful.
Thank you, Melissa.
If you'd like to know more about how to manage the grief and loss of a pet and Gemma, you can go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another guest with an interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, psychotherapist specialising in hypnotherapy, Julie Makin, will be talking about Dare to Live Authentically.
Welcome back. Our last guest is Julie Makin, a psychotherapist specialising in hypnotherapy, here to discuss the topic, Dare to Live Authentically. Hi Julie, it's so great to have you back.
Hi, thank you.
So tell us, what is authenticity?
Being authentic is about being true to yourself and to be asking yourself, is this right for me? Okay, so as an example, I know a lady and she felt hopeless, helpless. She had problems voicing, her wants and needs. She also felt not supported in her family unit. She had a couple of young kids and a husband that wasn't overly supportive. But when she actually started asking herself, is this right for me, at every choice, the world started to shift for her. People around her started to respond differently to her because she was starting to put up innate boundaries simply by asking herself, is this right for me? And when we do that, our world starts to work for us.
And how else can we live our truth? You've said put up boundaries and...
So definitely putting in boundaries as to what is right for you. If you're wanting to communicate with somebody, you might start off with an I feel statement. So I feel hurt when walk off on me and I'm in the middle of talking to you. I feel scared when you start to raise your voice. That sort of thing. So those are I feel statements. And the I feel statement is not about blaming the other person. It's about making both parties feel safe. Not only are you getting across what it is that you feel that you need to say, but then it's not landing on the other person as an attack. The other thing that I would say is you might also like to put in a thank you statement. So in a relationship, it might help to say thank you and appreciate that person. Thank you so much for being there for me. I know perhaps I haven't always said thank you for, when you do the dishes, when you pick the kids up from school. So just letting your partner know that you are appreciated. So being authentic, once again, I always come back to listening to the body as to what is right for you. So when you listen to the body and you go, okay, so do I want to go to that party? And if you just listen into your body and you recognize, oh, you know what, that's feeling a little bit challenging. It's, I'm getting all these anxious feelings coming up. And when that happens, I invite you to start to put yourself back in control by saying, okay, do I actually want to go to that party, or do I, not want to go? Because you know what? You have choice. So when you have choice and when you say, yes, you know what, I'm going to go to that party, you are putting yourself back in control. You are putting yourself back into a place of safety. The other things to touch on as far as safety is concerned is to, start breathing properly. So in for 4, out for 4, sometimes even the double breath in, like the Wim Hof double breath in, making sure that you get it all the way down to the gut. Other things to connect with others to help us feel safe is the eye contact. We want to smile at someone, we want to connect with them. So those things help. You could also try putting your tongue against the roof of your mouth as well. So just tiny little tips. Maybe check your body posture. So if we're feeling, we're crouching over and we're putting our head down, our body starts to feel that little bit low and depressed. But when we stand up and our chest is out, we're standing tall, we are proud of who we are, we are confident, and we are showing everybody and putting out this energy, yes, we are confident. And when you start to live authentically, that starts to happen automatically. Your body starts to do it on its own.
What stops people from living authentically?
Okay, what I feel stops people from living authentically is that conditioning that we had as a child. Once again, I'm going to say my parents were gold star parents. They put the roof over my head, they clothed me, they fed me. They were awesome. They taught me to be compliant, to do as I was told, you know, to put other people's needs ahead of my own. In doing so, they had me feeling like I don't matter. So these are the sorts of things that push aside our feeling of authenticity. Now, that kind of conditioning I had to put up with as a child. I still want to be loved. You know, it's really important for a person to feel loved and included, not rejected. You know, we want to feel supported. We want to feel safe.
Do you have any tips for our viewers?
Oh, absolutely. So once again, I'm going to reiterate the importance of the breathing. So in for 4, out for 4, to start taking the body back to that place of safety. Also, you might like to look at eye contact and smiling, you know, with someone just to help connect. One thing that I really do feel is that villagers back in the day, our ancestors, had it spot on when they would do things like the dancing and the singing. So one thing that I will do in the morning is I like to sing, have music on in the shower in the morning, start to move around a little bit, and just to start your day off. You know, you want to start your day off nice and good in the morning. And just the tip is to start taking up space. So whether or not you're, you know, in a chair like this, you might, you know, start to sit on a 45-degree angle. Start to take up space. When you're hopping out of bed in the morning, perhaps even before you even put your feet on the floor, I invite you to do open yourself up like a star and just start to take up space. It really helps the rest of the day to have a flow. You know, we want you to start off the day in a positive way. Also invite the viewers to, you know, start to connect more with your friends, your relatives, you know, just for support if you need to. And then for further assistance, please get in touch with a professional therapist, you know, of any modality. It doesn't matter. It's got to be what is right for you. Maybe one thing might not work for you, but perhaps something else will. So I invite you to really, you know, get curious and start to have some adventure around that. Start to explore what is right for you.
Thank you so much, Julie.
No worries, thank you.
If you would like to know more about living authentically and Julie Makin, please visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That's all we have time for tonight. Goodbye until next week.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.